because I truly believed in this, Kylie. This had started to become my driving passion.
We're happy to be back here at the Solex podcast room with whoever this guy is. You want to give yourself a little introduction? So who
I don't
are
know
you?
who I am.
You don't even know who you are?
I have to ask my wife every morning, who am I?
Well, how nice of her.
Yeah,
She's so
nice.
patient with you.
Sometimes she's kind.
No, this is Loran Swensen. If you guys haven't met him, you're missing out because he's a pretty amazing guy. And this podcast episode today, we're just going to kind of deep dive a little bit more into you and into your AO scan story, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Perfect. So I guess where I want to start is before AO scan even existed, before it was even a thing. What were you doing? Who were you? What were you up to?
Well, about 10 years before we ever had AO scan, I was making what we now call the Cephi and the inner voice. That's what I started with back in 2004 and 5 and 6. And that's what we started with. That's wasn't really about scanning people. It was about making homeopathics. It was about recording the voice, because I really felt the emotional side of life was played a huge role in our physical side. And so that's where we started. That's what I was doing. And then I had traveled to China to attend a medical convention. And that's where I was introduced to the NLS scanning system out of Russia.
Okay.
It was this huge booth. The booth must have been 30 feet deep and 50 feet wide. And it was all Russian in a Chinese convention. So that's...
Okay, so that's kind of the introduction into this like scanner interest lifestyle. Okay, so you said you were working on Cephis and things like that. What even got you interested? Why were you working on Cephis, or what's now called Cephis? It wasn't called that.
Again, I'd been at, it was a health fair in Las Vegas, Nevada. And they were doing they had a little plate that made homeopathic medicines. And I thought that's really cool. You know, I used to do magic when I was really young. And so that to me looked like a magic trick. I mean, he's making something out of this. And that got me intrigued into the whole field of homeopathic medicines and homeopathic procedures and therapies. And not too far from that particular booth was somebody recording your voice and then telling you about your personality. All surface level stuff, but it was still fun. And I ended up buying both those pieces of equipment and going home and playing with them and finding that there's real science behind both of those, even science that I wasn't aware of, and maybe mainstream science hadn't acknowledged yet. But my wife was really big into Bach flowers because her son was dealing with a lot of anxiety issues. And so she'd buy this remedy, Bach flower remedy called Rescue Remedy. And I said, well, let me see if I can make that one. And so I pulled out the little machine, and then we had some sugar pills, and I made it. And we never told him that we'd swapped it, because if he felt anxious, he'd open up a cap, pour a few beads in, put them under his tongue, and he would calm down. So we never told him, and we just gave him the bottle, and he never said anything. He'd get his anxiety, and he'd take his pills, and it would calm down just like normal. And so we thought, well, maybe that's just placebo, because he's so used, if I take these pills, I'm going to have this reaction. And so we went back to the other pills, and they worked just the same. And then one day we gave him some sugar pills that had no frequency in them at all. And this was where we were going to find out if it was placebo. And he had an anxiety episode, took the pills, nothing happened, took the pills, nothing happened. He called his mom, says, I think it's gotten worse because now none of the medicine's working. And she goes, well, let me give you another bottle. And so she gave him the other bottle that we had programmed, not the Bach flower one, but the one we had made. and almost instantly it was away. So that was our proof that there's really something to this. I can't explain it. I don't know why, but if he took the one that we programmed, it worked just like the one that we bought off the store shelf.
Because it was a true test. You were almost in your head being like, okay, is this real? Yeah. Like, is this actually going to work, or is it a magic trick, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, if it was a placebo, even the fake pills, the ones that had nothing in it, would have worked.
Because he had no...
No, he had no clue.
Yeah. If to him it was the same pills, to the point where he's like, something with me
it's
is
worse.
different.
Yeah, it's worse.
That's interesting. Okay, so then would you say your kind of dive into this frequency homeopathic world was kind of based on?
Well, that was probably my first start, because the first thing I did after we realized this was really working is I ripped the machine apart. I want to know what made it work. I mean, how did this work? And the thing that was disappointing and surprising was there was nothing in that box except a little coil that went out to a little, you plugged into your computer and you could type something in. So I'm thinking, so whatever, that must be coming from the computer, because it's just a coil. And so we started experimenting with the coil. And then I thought, well, maybe I can write my own little program. And so I wrote this really simple little program that just put frequencies in. And we found that that's how it worked. And so really homeopathic is more of the intention. Now there's a frequency behind the intention. Like the sugar pills that had no frequency didn't work. But the ones that we actually put a frequency in did. And so that's when we started to realize, okay, there is more to this than meets the eye. And that's when we just started jumping into everything we could about frequencies and about intuition and about homeopathics. And it just kind of led us down that road.
That's really cool. So you mentioned that like you'd been to a couple trade shows or conventions?
Yeah, back then they were called health and wellness fairs. And there was one that was called a New Age convention. That was really interesting.
Okay, so you'd been to a few of those, and this like slowly introducing you to things like homeopath, like the pills that you could imprint. You mentioned that Russian technology that you came across, and then you had that experience with your son. Would you say that that's kind of what created like the idea of the AO scan? Like you were like, oh, I created this little thing. This can be so much bigger.
I don't think it was quite that quick. I knew the voice and I knew the homeopathic. It wasn't until, 6 years later that I'd gone to a medical convention in China that I was introduced to frequency scanning. I hadn't seen anything like that before. The voice was the other one that was interesting. This one you would speak into it and then it would tell you your personality traits. So really simple. But I thought, well, that's pretty close. I'm kind of that way. And my wife was kind of that way. And we started digging into that. And it led me to a man by the name of Roberto Forcin out of Barcelona, Spain. And I reached out to him and he was saying, well, I've made something a little bit more advanced than that. It costs this much money if you'd like to buy one. And so we did. We bought one of his. And this one, instead of giving you personality traits, it basically said, okay, you're dealing with these 4 types of emotions and these are what, and that's where the inner voice really started, was with that. So at the beginning, I had this voice aspect and then I had the homeopathic. And I remember we were working with the inner voice and it was getting to a point where I felt like I could do more. And so I reached back out to Roberto. And to this day, I'm still on a phone call basis with him. He's a nice guy. And I asked him, I'd like to take this further. And he said, well, I've kind of hit where my skill knowledge level is, but I'll sell you the code. And so he sold me the code. And unfortunately, the code didn't really help me because I'm not a code engineer and it was really an old code. But it got us thinking we can take this, and we started working. And within a few months, we came up with our first little inner voice.
Okay. So then was it kind of the idea then, was it you had all these different aspects that you liked and you wanted to be able to have it in one place? Or did that just happen organically?
That happened a little later. I was selling the homeopathic imprint machine and I was selling the voice machine separately.
Okay.
It wasn't until I went to the show in China and I was introduced to how you could actually scan the entire body with frequency that I got really excited. Okay, well, if they can do the body and I can do the voice and this can make the remedies, now this is where that picture started to form.
And was there like a reason that you were searching out things like this, or do you feel like you just were interested? Like, was there a frustration or experience or something like that that was triggering you to find solutions or find answers?
No, not really. I think I was intrigued. This is something I'd never heard about, never understood before. This just made sense. And it was so exciting. I honestly could say, this is going to help so many people and I can make a living. Yeah. And so those two, it was, the mother of necessity, right? I needed both and this worked.
Well, and it's better, right? It's like, yes, you want to make a living, but how amazing that you also get to change people's lives and help people doing that. Right?
100%.
And that's probably a big driving factor behind that. Okay, so then while this was all coming to be and you're doing all this research, you're starting to share it with people, you have the two separate machines. Did you ever have experiences talking to people and like telling them your ideas and they're like, okay, crazy man?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah. How did you deal with that?
To me, that was almost like a badge of honor and almost like a challenge, So, okay, yeah, I resemble that. And now I'm going to challenge you. And it got into these really healthy debates, where that doesn't make sense. This is nonsense. That you're telling me I can throw a vitamin C into Lake Tahoe, stir it around, and I've got vitamin C lake. And I said, well, that's kind of ridiculous. And he said, well, it's no more ridiculous than what you just told me. And it was interesting how we eventually got to the point where, okay, I can understand that. Yeah, that's a little far-fetched, but no, I can understand this. Mm-hmm. And so those discussions helped make me more secure in what I was really, truly believing. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just I automatically believed it. I was intrigued by it. And the things I was seeing helped form a belief, but more of a level of comfort that I'm okay with this. It's not scam. I just don't know how to explain it yet. But over time, I got used to this. And then pretty soon, I would say 70% of the people I talked with maybe didn't always agree, but they would agree that I really believed in what was happening and that there might be something they just can't understand. Mm-hmm. And maybe 30% or maybe 30 to 40% just thought I was truly nuts and out in the wind.
Well, that's normal.
Yeah.
People usually think you're nuts.
Which is a good thing.
No, I like how you said that because I think what's interesting is you talked about how you were still trying to understand more and learn more. And so almost the challenge of having to explain it to other people was like, oh, I need to learn this, and maybe even found it in yourself. Do I truly believe in this, or do I think that this one isn't quite so real? And you were able to get to that point yourself of, no, this is real. And I do know, and I do believe this, and I've had this experience, and to be able to, like test it so that it was actual. So then you're kind of dealing with yourself learning and creating and becoming, who you are and what you believed and what you understood and knew. What would you say was the biggest obstacle for you in actually like coming to building the AO scanner and learning all that?
Probably the biggest obstacle, because when I started to go down the route of, I now understand this technology enough to where I think I can do something good with it. The biggest obstacle was, okay, how do I take it from this concept into a reality, which takes money and time and resources that I didn't have a lot of. And so it was going and finding people that would invest in something that they truly didn't even believe in. But they believed enough in that I believed it that maybe they wouldn't completely lose all their money. So That's how that went.
That's great. So your biggest obstacle was just getting the means.
Absolutely.
That's cool. Was there a moment in the creation of the AO scan that you almost gave up? Like, were you like, oh, too much, too hard?
No, because I truly believed in this, Kylie. This had started to become my driving passion, to where in hindsight, look back at, I let things that were really kind of important, like, paying the rent and buying groceries and not letting my power get turned off.
No, that's not necessary.
I became so focused on making this happen that I kind of lost sight of everything else around me. But it was good because I learned more about it, and I learned more about me, and I learned more about people. And the key is if we could do something that at the end of the day, you can go to bed and put your head on the pillow and feel like this was a good day, I helped somebody, or I learned something, that is a good day. Not how much money you made or how big of an empire you built, but did you help somebody and did you learn something? That's a good day.
So that's what kept you going, because you had that true belief that this is helping people. And you're like,
Yep.
I need to get this out. I need to help more people.
A frustrating thing is I knew it helped. I couldn't prove it helped. That's the hardest thing. It was, okay, listen, I can give you all this anecdotal stuff, but that's not science. And then I would always fall back on something that I knew they couldn't explain. Can you tell me how a microwave works? Or can you tell me how your cell phone finds one number somewhere else? If you can tell me those things, then I'll give up. But they couldn't. But they still believed in it because it had anecdotal evidence. It worked. And so, and I think I think even to this day, there's still a lot of that because it's really hard to prove scientifically that this is doing this when all the anecdotal says it's doing it, but I can't necessarily connect all the dots on the science side of it.
Yeah, that would be kind of difficult.
Mm-hmm. It's tough.
Like if you have to take all the personal experience and story out of it and explain it. Well, but I feel like there's a lot of things in our life like that. Like to your point,
100%.
like making a phone call. I'm sure there's one person out there who really knows the science behind it. Maybe. Or maybe it was just like, we tried it and it worked.
Yeah, and we don't care.
That's true.
So
okay, so we've talked a lot up to this point about, we've thrown out AO scan, we've thrown out frequency, inner voice, Cephi, things like that. For the person who might be listening to this that it has zero clue what we're even speaking about, pretend it's me. I've never even heard of AO scan. What is it actually doing?
The AO scan, in really simple terms, is a device or a software that is actually able to tune into your bioenergetic frequency, which is scientifically proven. That's not woo. We all know that we have a very unique bioenergetic signature. It's able to tune into that, and just like somebody sitting in an audience listening to an orchestra, they can tell when one string is off or one trumpet is off or one whatever. They can tell it. This is what it's able to do with your frequencies in your body and say, hey, this isn't vibrating where it should. And that's what the AO scan does. So it tunes into you and says, okay, we've got some frequency imbalances here that we need to look at.
Okay. So like your bioenergetic field, is that like I know that there's like electricity within us, right? Like how our brain functions with like neurons and nerves and all those words. It's electricity. So is your bioenergetic field, is that like that electricity moving through your body, or is
it's more than just that. It's more than just electrical. It's your your magnetic field. Oh. It's your emotional field. Because your emotional field can be tested as well and seen. It has a frequency. So it tunes into all of your fields in your body, and
finds like an imbalance.
It doesn't fix it. It just finds it.
Okay, so then that's what it's measuring. Then it's measuring energy within your body, or reading.
I would say it's comparing. Okay, so in other words, the AO has a database of known healthy frequencies. And that database is over 192,000 points. Okay. So when it's measuring the frequencies of you or your dog or your horse, it's comparing your frequencies to these known frequencies that are healthy, are good. Okay. Yeah. And if it's vibrating faster, it knows it's under stress. If it's vibrating lower, then it knows it's not functioning. And so all it's doing, I wouldn't say it's measuring, it's more comparing a frequency to a known frequency and then making an assessment.
So comparing like what's happening in your body to what it knows is like a normal range.
Right.
Okay, very cool. So then that actually, I wonder if that's pretty similar to like, smartwatches and smart rings that people wear. And it's like measuring your heart rate or your sleep score, things like that. Pretty similar to that, would you say?
Incredibly similar, except in one area. It's measuring what it's actually feeling, what it actually can sense on your wrist or your ring or your finger. Whereas this is able to see all of the frequencies in your body, just not, half a dozen that this can pick up from the sensors.
So more then.
Much more.
So if you're choosing between one or the other, it's kind of an easy choice. Which one, right?
Well, you can't wear the AO scan so well. You can wear a watch or a ring.
That's true. Okay, so that's actually another question that I would have then. Why would I choose that? Because like if I got a ring and I put a ring on, that's measuring me all day long. I don't even have to think about it. With the AO scan, it's a little more, so I have to go in and do something, right? Mm-hmm. Is it still consistently comparing me or I don't know what the right word is, scanning me?
No, it's only going to scan you when you ask it to.
Okay.
So you have to actually go in and hit scan, and then it will do the reading, and that'll give you the comparison. Whereas your ring or your watch, they're measuring your heart rate, your steps, your whatever, and extrapolating from what those sensors can pick up and giving you, you slept this many hours, you walked this many steps, your heart rate was this fast. But it's not really telling you anything about your emotions. It's not telling you, hey, your kidneys are not functioning where they should, or your heart has an arrhythmia.
You ate lobster today.
Yeah, you shouldn't eat that food today.
Okay, so then if it's not consistently scanning you, do you think like just scan yourself once a day is probably okay? Or would you do like multiple times a day? Or
there are times I scan multiple times a day. There's times I maybe only scan twice a week.
Okay.
What I would recommend to myself and to everybody is one scan every day.
What kind of time constraint are we looking at for that? Like, is that going to take a lot of time?
3 minutes.
Day? Oh,
3 minutes. I mean, for me, the best time for me to scan is just before I go to bed or just when I get up. Okay. Things are a little slower, a little quieter in your body. I like in the morning better because everything has just rested. I seem to get I get better results when I do morning. Okay. Now, that's just the scan and the optimization. The one that's most important in my mind is your inner voice. And because it's integrated to the AO scan, it's not two different machines. They all talk to each other. So when the voice and your scan are being put together, the analysis, the comparative state is much more comprehensive. Yeah. And so you get a better look at, wow, okay, I can see how when I got upset at something yesterday, it affected not just me being mad and emotional, but it actually affected my heart, or it actually affected something else in my body. And so that to me is really valuable.
Yeah.
And so just doing that quick scan. Now on inner voice, I would recommend doing inner voice whenever you're feeling like, hey, I'm just not emotionally where I need to be right now. I got rear-ended one day. Now I had scanned that morning, did my inner voice, listened to my tones. An hour later, I'm driving into work and I get rear-ended. Well, that changed everything instantly. And instead of getting upset, and because it wasn't my fault, I immediately opened up my phone, put my earbuds in, and I listened. I did my little inner voice, 10 seconds, listened to that first song before I even got out of the car. And I tell you, I got out of that car and I walked back to him and I said, "Are you okay?"
Wow.
And that changed everything here, just listening to that. And I was ready to get out and say, "What were you thinking?"
You just hit my car.
Yeah, instead of, "Are you okay?"
Instead of, "Hey, how are you?"
Yeah, and see, that changed everything. Now, hopefully I'd like to get to the point where that would be my go-to anyway. But until I get to that point, the inner voice really helps me get to that point.
Well, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having a tool help you get to that point, because
Right.
our emotions can run away from us, and I think that's human.
Mm-hmm.
So how cool actually to have a tool to be like, okay, I know how I'm going to react in this moment isn't how I truly want to react.
Exactly.
Let me get back into that mindset of being a good human,
Yeah.
the good human that I am.
Well, and it changes everything. It changes your whole cortisol levels. It changes everything physically, not just emotionally.
Yeah.
When you can come from a point of calm and love or forgiveness instead of anger and frustration, that changes everything.
Well, and I think that's actually so true. I think emotions have a lot to do with how we feel physically. Like if you feel sad, if you feel down, if you feel angry, your body will feel heavy. Or like you even hear the stories of people where it's like a husband and a wife, and one dies and then the other dies pretty soon after of a broken heart.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because they had so much emotion that it shut their body
That's
down.
right.
And so to be able to scan, or would you say optimize, to be able to optimize both things to work together.
Absolutely. And that actually happened to my grandparents. My grandfather died of a massive heart attack, and 6 weeks to the day she'd passed away from melancholy.
Your body just gives up because you're sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's not like that happens every once in a while. Like you hear about that frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Our emotions have so much to do. Or like you even think about people who are in like crazy car accidents and they get themselves through it because it's like, oh, I need to save my kid. And they lift the car off their kid.
Yeah.
You know, if you ask them to do it on a normal day, they wouldn't be able to lift a car. But because they have so much emotion behind it, they're able to lift a car.
Yeah.
It's amazing what our emotions can do. And so to have a tool that can help you choose to have a balanced emotion or to help you go back to your balanced emotion, it's actually pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so then all of that being said, just from what you've witnessed from the beginning, what is the most surprising result or transformation that you've ever personally witnessed from someone using the AO scan?
The one that I know the best is my own. I had a stroke on July 4th, 2020. And my doctor says, "Hey, you're never going to walk again, or if you do, it'll be in a walker, but most likely in a wheelchair." And my wife brought me in my phone, and that night, all I did was optimize. And I walked out of the hospital the next day. And so the only thing I did, well, I didn't take any medication. They hadn't done anything. But in about 18 hours, I was able to walk out. Now, that was my experience. I know others have had equally exciting experiences. But for me, that was my real aha moment. If this can really work. And so every hour I just did another optimization, and I did. So
what did your doctor say? Because he was just barely saying you're probably going to be in a wheelchair.
That's a whole story in and of itself. They wouldn't even let me leave until 5 doctors came in and double checked, made sure everything was good. And how can you do that? Well, maybe you didn't have a stroke at all. And I said, well, what is this? Here's my CT scan. There's the blockage. And so anyway, but the point is for me, it didn't matter what they thought or said. Yeah. I knew I was carried in and I walked out.
And walked out after being told you're not going to be walking out.
Nope.
That's crazy. So that's pretty shocking. Is that probably the most shocking moment you've had with the scan? Or is there something that like truly floored you by something that your scanner picked up or that you've seen someone else's scanner pick up in them?
Well, I've seen it with lots of other people, and I'll kind of let them tell their own stories. On me, I had a herniated disc on my L5. And
Is that in your spine?
yeah, that's right down at the bottom near your tailbone. And that had happened several years before. But every time I do an optimization on a scan and optimization on my spine, it shows my L5 herniated disc. And now, how would it know that? Obviously,
It's not like you went in and
Nope.
programmed.
You can't do that. And there it shows right there. When we scanned, there's this lady that was having some abdominal issues, and we'll just leave it at that. Her name. It found them, and she started optimizing every day. And within 2 weeks, those issues in her abdomen were gone. And she hadn't done any medicine. She hadn't done any surgeries or anything. But it found them. I mean, the doctor had confirmed that she had the problem. They wanted to go in and do some invasive things to take care of it. And we thought, well, we're going to try this. I think, I do have one. And I have the permission to say that one. Larry McCracken, one of our longest QLAs.
We love Larry.
Yeah, he's amazing. Just turned 91. Happy birthday, Larry. Came to me 11 years ago. He had just come from the hospital, and his two main carotid arteries were so blocked, they were going to have to cut them out and put stents in.
Oh, wow.
And so he came down to the center, and he says, Loran, what can we do? And I says, I don't know. But that's a pretty big deal. He said, well, I've got 3.5 weeks before I go in for my surgery. So we scanned and optimized him every single day. He did it once at the office in the evening and once in the morning because he had one at home. And the only other thing we had done was we give him Pulse, so he would take the Pulse. So he goes in 3.5 weeks later, and they come back and say, Larry, we've got a problem. After they've already done the MRI, they come out and say, listen, Larry, we've got a problem with the MRI. We have to have it recalibrated. Can you come back tomorrow? And so he says, okay. So he goes back the next day, comes back out and says, well, Larry, I don't know what to tell you. Says, there's nothing wrong with the MRI. And I know for a fact there was nothing wrong with it when we looked at you a few weeks ago. But you got the arteries of an 18-year-old.
Oh.
You need no surgery. And then this is 11 years now, and he's never, ever had an issue with his carotid arteries.
And he was like at the point of we're going to put stents in.
Well, it was scheduled.
Oh.
It was scheduled. His doctor to this day doesn't understand it.
And he was doing it every day, just scan, optimize.
Twice every day. And then he did Pulse.
When we say optimize, what is that? Like, what is optimizing?
Okay, so optimizing is, so when we do the scan, it comes up with all our frequencies, the good, high, low, or medium, whatever. And so all of the frequencies that were out of range, that were either high or low, then we play that exact same frequency back in, because the theory is cancel, or like cancels like. So if I've got 100 hertz here and I'm giving it 100 hertz, that's a really simple explanation. But if I give it both, they cancel. Now, one of two things will happen. Nothing, or it starts to fix that frequency imbalance. And in most cases, there will be some type of an improvement. And if that improvement continues, then it can actually fix itself. Sometimes it requires more than just frequencies. Maybe it's a diet change. Maybe it's a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's what an
Hurt, right?
optimization, no, it can't hurt you. All optimization is doing is saying, hey, we're going to give you this frequency back. And that's what it does.
So in Larry's case, there was a frequency read in his carotid artery. Let's say it was 100. And so by optimizing, you were talking back to it at 100. And you just did that so many times until something happened. I'm not saying it was 100.
No.
Yeah.
What was interesting is we know that a 9 on the scan is really bad. It's under stress. Yeah. And both his carotid arteries and the arteries around it were showing 9. And even after optimization, still 9. On the 7th day, we saw those numbers go from 9 to 8. About 4 days later, they went from 8 to 7. And then when he went in, he was at 6 and 6 on those arteries. And so we're like this, and he goes in, and sure enough, his arteries were good and healthy.
So 6 is a good number.
4, 5, or 6 are good numbers. 5 is perfect.
Beautiful.
So
So he was nearly perfect.
He was nearly perfect.
That's pretty awesome, actually. Okay. So then to the skeptics then that are going to try this for the first time, you say, here's the AO scanner. What do they usually say to you?
What do I do with it? That's usually the first question. And when I tell people the first time, I says, listen, it's really overwhelming. You're going to see all these reports and all these names and all these numbers, and it's going to intimidate you. All I want you really to do is talk for 10 seconds and listen to the music, which is 12 minutes. Do that for a week, and then let's talk again. And that's an easy thing for most people. Okay, I can talk for 10 seconds and listen to the music.
Listen to music, yeah.
And then most of the time, not all, but most of the time, the people that did it will come back and say, I feel a little more balanced, or I feel a little more grounded, or whatever. And that's the emotions. I said, well, how about now we add this to it, and let's take a look at your chemistry. And I just kind of ease them into it. But, one thing we can do is we can drown somebody by giving them way too much information too fast.
Yeah.
And
so you recommend starting with inner voice and the emotional side.
Well, because that's something you can it's pretty easy to realize something's happening, something's changing. And it's just, like when they can sit down and they get done with the music and they realize, man, I'm not as tense right now. Or I would have normally argued at one of my kids or my spouse over that, and I seem to be more calm. See, they can see something, and that's all people need to see generally is, okay, something's happening. They may not understand it, but something's happening, and that leads them, okay, I'm going to do it a little bit more.
I know for Kai and Shelby, a big convincing thing that happened to them was one of their daughters was being pretty bratty, and so they had her do inner voice, and within the time the music stopped, she was nice and sweet and happy and ready to go again. And they were like, okay, so maybe there's something real about
it's
this.
really something.
Yeah.
I remember she even said that she had sent some sugar pellets with one of their daughters when she went to school. And because she was under some anxiousness, and how big of a difference that made for her. And so all of those little things, every one of us, when we first got introduced to the AO scanner, every one of us was like, okay, this is kind of out there.
It's kind of woo-woo.
Have you been smoking some of that funny stuff? And pretty soon, if there's any type of a relation, they'll say, okay, I'm going to give it a try. I don't believe it, but I'm going to give it a try. And once they start to get their own experiences, then all of a sudden that opens up.
Well, and I think it opens up your mind too to frequency and sound therapy and things. It's not new. This isn't because it's been 10 years maybe that you've been playing with this, 15 years that you've been playing around. Oh, maybe longer.
20 years? Almost 20.
Yeah, 20 years.
Yeah, so here's the thing.
But it's not like it's only 20 years old.
No, Einstein, he's on the record for saying the future of medicine is frequency. And then the Rockefellers got involved and said, nope, the future of medicine is petrochemical. And that's where it went. Yeah. And now you're starting to see that shift. You're seeing dyed-in-the-wool medical doctors stepping away from all the petrochemical and are starting to be a little more open-minded to sound healing and frequency healing and meditation, whereas, 10 years ago, they would have thought you were nuts.
Well, and I even think back to some of these really, really older civilizations, like back in China and India and all of those places. They've been using this forever and have never stopped.
Yep.
And it seems to be working for them.
Yep.
Keeps working for them.
No, there's some real science behind it. It's just we are not familiar with that science because it's been blocked from us. We've been taught this is the way it is. And it's unfortunate that we weren't given all that information.
What's amazing, though, is even in the past however many years that the AO scan's been around and that we've been able to talk about it and share it with people, I feel like it's been reaching people and resonating with people. There's something innately in humans, I think, that are like, oh, I recognize this and I know this. And it maybe starts out woo-woo, but becomes a comfort almost.
It's interesting. The first AO scan was in 2008. Okay. And we didn't, and it was like $36,000 to buy an AO scan. It was what doctors bought. It wasn't for the home. And then in 2017, we says, how do we get this to where we can get it in the hands of everybody? And we started working on making it to where it could be accessed from a phone. And in 2020, we launched it as the AO scan that we know today.
Was that when Solex became Solex?
Solex became that about 6 months later. But here's what the point I want to make. In that first, what would that have been, 8 years? We maybe had scanned total worldwide 25 to 50,000 scans.
That's amazing.
Okay, in 8 years.
Worldwide.
Since August of 2020 to last week, we have scanned over 51.8 million scans.
Oh.
You see, so that doesn't happen if it's not real.
No.
You know, you can't scam 51 million people and continue to scam them. And every year it's more and more people are looking into this. And it's heartwarming to see this happen, because it's not just that the company is growing or the scanners, whatever. You're seeing lives change. That's where the magic is. We can all go out and find a job that makes money, but to have a job that we make a living, but we can also enhance and improve the life of someone else. Now, in sports terms, that's a grand slam home run, you know?
Yeah. Well, and going back to you, I wonder if you 20 years ago diving into this and starting out, I want to make money and I want to help people. I wonder if you saw these numbers now, what you would say. What do you think you would say 20 years ago? I knew
Impossible.
Impossible.
Oh yeah, I would have looked at that and said that's impossible. That's 1/5 the entire United States, you know?
Yeah.
So the point, I guess, I mean, I'm pretty optimistic, but I would have looked at that and said that's impossible. That you just can't do that many. You can't. But we can and have.
And are more so.
More.
I wonder what the numbers today would be, right?
Yeah. No, it's going to be exciting.
Well, so I guess on that same track, so Solex and AO Scan has been a thing for about 6 years then.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see the AO Scan be in 5 more years?
I think it's reasonable to see us at 4 or 5 times the size we are right now. I'd like it to be much more than that, but it's like we've talked about earlier. We have a pretty high level of resistance we have to get over with people. It's not like going to somebody and trying to sell them something that, you know,
that they're familiar with.
Yeah.
Like a new flavor of chocolate bar.
Yeah. So it's going to take some time, but I think we could be 4 to 5 times where we are now in 5 years.
And would you say the bigger mission, like beyond just the tech itself, the technology, is to help people?
Oh, 100%.
And give people the tools to be able to help their people and so on and so on.
If you were to survey every person that works in this company, I'm pretty sure every single one would say that what makes them love this company is, yeah, one, they have a paycheck, a job, but 2, the fact that it is really helping people, because everybody here sees what's happening. Everybody, from our customer support people to the media people, everybody, they can see what's happening. And that changes the way you look about your job.
Yeah, it does. Well, because it is nice to get that consistent paycheck. You need that. You need to pay your rent. You need to buy groceries. You need to feed your family, whatever else you have going on. So yeah, that is a necessary thing. But to get that and then also have a hand in changing someone's life.
Yeah. And you know, we can take it even outside of the realm of the scanner. Take a look at most nurses. Most nurses, and I would say even most doctors, are in it for the 2 reasons. 1, they make money, but 2, to see a life change. You know, and so it's not that we're some altruistic company. But it's definitely part of the core of the people that work here is, hey, I want to know that I did something good.
Okay, so then if there's someone who's on the fence that's listening to this podcast right now and they're on the fence, should I make the leap? Should I try AOScan? Should I dive into this? What would you say to them?
First thing I would say is, no, don't dive in. Find somebody that'll help you do an inner voice. Okay? Because the last thing you want to do is get into something you're not familiar with and then just fall away. That just wastes time and money. But do an inner voice. Find your own comfort level. And if it doesn't resonate with you, then this isn't where you should be. Get out there, do an inner voice, do it for a week, and my word, you can do it for free. Find out if this is what it works. And if it works for you, if you can get past your level of skepticism, then I would say jump in with both feet. But test how cold the water is before you do.
So finding someone, how should they go about doing that?
I talk to everybody.
Okay.
I'll be on a plane, and I generally don't talk to the people sitting next to me on the plane. I generally just kind of stay to myself.
Let them have their space.
Let them have their space. Let me have my space. But I was on a trip a year ago, and I was sitting next to this young lady, and we hadn't said a word until we're about 40 minutes from landing. And we've been on this flight for like 3.5 hours. So it wasn't like we'd been having a conversation. She was doing her thing. I was reading my stuff. And
now you're in the final descent.
And I looked over at her because I was looking out the window, and I could tell that there was, I don't know if it was a sadness or whatever, but I noticed that there was something. And I just said, are you nervous about the landing? And she said, no, do it every day. Is there anything I can do for you? I said. And she just says, no, not really. I'm just dealing with things. I said, would you like to listen to some music that might help change that? And at first she said, no, I'm okay. And then all of a sudden she says, yeah, what the heck? And so I said, well, here, just speak into this for 10 seconds and it'll make the music based on what you said. She said, well, that's interesting. And she got off that plane and she gives me a big old hug. Now, this is somebody I don't even know.
A stranger.
But it had changed, and she only listened to 4 minutes. She only listened to one of them. And it made such a difference. She says, I feel like I've got this. And so I'm just saying, you never know what's going to happen. But if you're going out to sell somebody, they're going to sense that. If you're going out because you're showing concern or compassion or whatever, there's a totally different level of acceptance.
It's true. And if you're going out with a great intention like that, to help somebody, the worst they can say is no.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing scary about that. It's not putting yourself out there. It's truly, hey, I want to help you. Will you allow me to? If they say no, that's okay.
No is my second favorite word. Yes is my favorite.
Well,
but no is just one step away from yes. So.
Well, that's good because you hear no a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not even in a sassy bad way.
No. So it's all good.
I think that's great. Okay, so if people want to find out more information about Solex, what do you recommend that they should do?
Reach out to somebody that they know that may have an AOScan. If they don't, reach out to AOScan itself and tell somebody you want to do an inner voice.
Go to the website, call the customer support, and
do an inner voice.
They'll help you connect.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, let's do some rapid fire questions. Just the first answer that comes to your head, okay? What is one word people use to describe you that you disagree with?
Smart. No, it's true. I know lots of smart people. That's a big difference. So, yeah.
Well, agree to disagree. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Trust in yourself.
What's the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
I'm not interested.
What do you do personally to help stay balanced?
That's a constant challenge for me. Because balance means you have a balance between work, family, entertainment. And sometimes for me, I can get caught up in one of those and the other two suffer. So balance for me is a tough one. It's something I'm always working on. And honestly, inner voice.
Inner voice. Okay, what's one myth about wellness technology that you wish would just die off?
That everything is fixed with a pill, because it's not. We don't need that.
That's all I have for you for right now. There's no guarantees that I won't pull you back in here for more questions.
Good.
But thank you for your time today.
Thank you.